The United States government has offered $20 million for one man. Not a terrorist, not a warlord, a cartel boss, a ghost. A man who has evaded the most sophisticated law enforcement agencies on the planet for over a decade. His name is Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes. But in the underworld, in the mountains of Jalisco, in the corridors of power that drug money has quietly corrupted, they call him El Mencho. And right now, as you watch this, nobody knows exactly where he is. That is the most terrifying part of this story. Not what he has done, not the body count, not the grenades, the drones weaponized with explosives, or the armored convoys that move through Mexican highways like a private army on parade. The most terrifying part is that a man this dangerous has remained this invisible for this long. To understand El Mencho, you have to go back to dirt, literal dirt, a small, rural community in the state of Michoacan, Mexico, in the early 1960s. Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes was born into poverty so deep it had no visible floor. Michoacan was not just poor, it was forgotten. The kind of place where the Mexican government sent resources the way it sent promises, rarely and never enough. For a young boy growing up there, the future had only a few doors. You could farm, you could migrate, or you could find another way. Nemesio found another way. As a teenager, like hundreds of thousands of young Mexicans before and after him, he crossed the border into the United States. He landed in California. He picked avocados. He worked the fields of Michoacan's agricultural cousin on the American side, the Central Valley, breaking his back under a sun that didn't care who you were or where you came from. By all accounts, this chapter of his life was unremarkable, just another undocumented worker trying to survive. But survival, it turns out, was never going to be enough for Nemesio Oseguera. At some point in the late 1980s and early 1990s, he made contact with the Guadalajara Cartel, the godfather organization of modern Mexican drug trafficking. He began running drugs. He was arrested. He was deported. And then something happened that American law enforcement would come to deeply regret. He was released. A man who would one day command an army of tens of thousands of cartel soldiers walked back across the border into Mexico, and the clock started ticking. What followed was decades of apprenticeship and violence. El Mencho did not rise quickly. He rose carefully. He studied the cartels of that era, the Tijuana cartel, the Sinaloa cartel, the Zetas, and he learned from all of them. He learned that loyalty, enforced brutally and without exception, was the foundation of power. He learned that the state could be bought, but only if you had the money and the will to make the purchase. And he learned that the most dangerous weapon a cartel leader could have was not a gun or a bomb, but a reputation so terrifying that men surrendered before the fight even began. By 2013, El Mencho had founded his own organization. He called it the Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación, CJNG, the New Generation Jalisco Cartel. The name itself was a declaration. This was not the old way. This was something new, something meaner, faster, and more willing to go further than anyone who came before. The cartel announced itself to the world not with a press release, but with bodies. In 2011, before the organization even had its current name, members dumped 35 corpses on a major highway in Veracruz. They left a banner. The message was simple: we are here, and we will not be stopped. Mexican society was horrified, law enforcement was alarmed, and El Mencho was just getting started. What made CJNG different, what made it genuinely unprecedented in the history of organized crime, was its willingness to attack the state directly, not to bribe it, not to co-opt it, to attack it. In April 2015, cartel gunmen ambushed a federal police convoy in Jalisco, killing 15 officers. They didn't stop there. The same day, they shot down a military helicopter with ground fire, an act of warfare so brazen it shocked even hardened Mexican security officials. This was not a criminal organization. This was an insurgency. The Mexican government responded with a massive operation targeting El Mencho. They surrounded ranches, they deployed the military, and El Mencho vanished, like smoke, like he was never there. This became the defining pattern of his life as a fugitive. He moves constantly. He trusts almost no one with his location. His security apparatus is layered and sophisticated, with lookouts, counterintelligence, and the kind of operational security more commonly associated with intelligence agencies than drug traffickers. The DEA has called him one of the most elusive targets in the history of American law enforcement. The FBI has echoed that assessment. Interpol has a red notice on him, and still, he moves. Part of his invisibility is strategic, part of it is physical. In 2015, leaked reports suggested that El Mencho suffers from a serious kidney condition requiring regular dialysis. This was supposed to make him vulnerable. Dialysis requires equipment. Equipment requires supply chains. Supply chains can be followed. And yet somehow he has managed to receive medical treatment while remaining completely off the grid. Either his network is extraordinarily efficient at concealing his movements, or the people who know where he is are too afraid to say a word. Fear is the currency of El Mencho's kingdom, and he has never stopped spending it. In 2019, his son, Ruben Oseguera Gonzalez, known as El Menchito, was extradited to the United States. El Mencho's response was not grief, it was war. CJNG forces effectively shut down Guadalajara, the second largest city in Mexico, for an entire day. Roadblocks appeared, vehicles were set on fire, gunmen in tactical gear occupied public spaces. The message to the Mexican government was delivered in fire and steel. Touch my family again, and the whole country burns. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador had already revealed something telling about the government's posture toward El Mencho with the infamous hugs not bullets policy, a strategy of addressing cartel violence through social programs rather than military confrontation. Critics called it surrender in slow motion. Defenders called it a recognition of military reality. Whatever you call it, it meant that for years, the full weight of the Mexican state was never brought to bear on El Mencho with sustained, relentless pressure. Meanwhile, CJNG expanded. By the early 2020s, the cartel had a presence in all 31 states Mexico. It had established smuggling routes into the United States, Europe, and Asia. It was moving fentanyl, the synthetic opioid that has killed hundreds of thousands of Americans, in quantities that defy imagination. The DEA estimates that CJNG is one of the primary suppliers of fentanyl and methamphetamine into the United States. Every overdose death in an American suburb, every young person found lifeless in a bathroom or a car, somewhere in that chain of tragedy, the shadow of El Mencho and his organization may be present. That is why the $20 million reward exists. That is why American law enforcement considers him the top drug trafficking priority in the Western Hemisphere. Not just because of what he has done in Mexico, but because of what his product has done inside American borders. He has never had to set foot in the United States to kill Americans. He does it from a distance, through chemistry and logistics. The question that haunts investigators is not whether El Mencho will eventually be caught or killed. History suggests that cartel leaders almost always meet one of those two fates. The question is what happens when he is. The Sinaloa cartel survived the arrest of El Chapo. It adapted. It continued. CJNG is in many ways even more institutionally robust than the Sinaloa cartel was at a comparable stage of development. It has diversified its income streams, embedded itself in local economies through extortion and control of legitimate businesses, and built a culture of loyalty and terror that doesn't depend entirely on any single leader's charisma or presence. El Mencho built something that might be designed to outlast him, and that is perhaps the most unsettling thought of all. The man from the dirt fields of Michoacán, who once picked avocados in California for pennies an hour, now commands an empire that generates billions of dollars annually, that kills with industrial efficiency, and that has defied the combined efforts of two sovereign governments and multiple international law enforcement agencies for more than a decade. He is a ghost, he is a symbol, he is a system, and somewhere out there, in the mountains of Jalisco, or the concrete sprawl of a Mexican city, or a safe house that no satellite has yet identified, he is still breathing, still directing, still running the deadliest cartel on the face of the earth. $20 million, and he is still free. That tells you everything you need to know about the world we actually live in, versus the world we pretend to live in.